The lower market of Orbital Station Helios smelled like rust, recycled air, and desperation. Vendors hawked their wares in a dozen different languages, their voices blending into a cacophony that echoed off the metal walls. Neon signs flickered overhead, casting everything in shades of blue and sickly green. This was where the station's unwanted gathered, the broke, the lost, the forgotten. She sat in the narrow gap between two cargo containers, knees pulled tight to her chest, making herself as small as possible. Her clothes were hardly that any more just torn fabric that might have been gray once, or maybe brown. It was hard to tell under all the grime. Her hair hung in matted tangles around a face, so thin that her cheekbones cast shadows in the dim light dot. No one looked at her. That was intentional. She had learned long ago how to become invisible, how to make her presence so inconsequential that even the cruelest passers-by would forget she existed the moment they turned away. Invisibility meant safety. Safety meant survival. The containers behind her thrummed with the station's circulation systems, a constant metallic heartbeat that never stopped. She'd been sitting in this spot for 3 days now, ever since the station's security had chased her from her previous corner near the water reclamation plant. They hadn't arrested her. She wasn't worth the paperwork, but they'd made it clear she needed to disappear. So she had. A group of Zentari merchants passed by, their scaled skin gleaming under the market lights. One of them glanced in her direction, and she immediately dropped her gaze to the floor, every muscle in her body tensing. But they kept walking, their conversation never pausing. She exhaled slowly, the breath shaking as it left her lungs. The hunger was a constant companion now, a hollow ache that had moved beyond pain into something almost comfortable. She'd found half a nutrient pack in the trash yesterday, and though it had made her sick, it was something. Today she'd found nothing. Tomorrow probably wouldn't be different. She heard the heavy footsteps before she saw the boots solid, workers' boots with magnetic soles that clicked against the metal grating. Most people's footsteps blurred together in the market's chaos, but these were deliberate, unhurried. They stopped near her hiding spot. She didn't look up. Looking up invited attention, and attention brought pain. "You okay there?" The voice was human, male, with an accent that suggested the inner colonies. It was softer than she expected, lacking the harsh edge most people used in the lower market's. She said nothing. Sometimes, if she stayed quiet enough, they went away. The boots shifted, and she heard a soft grunt as whoever it was crouched down. Her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm not going to hurt you," the voice said. You look like you could use some help." "Don't need help," she whispered, her voice so rough from disuse that it barely sounded human. "Please just go." There was a pause. She could feel him looking at her, and shame burned through her chest. She knew what he saw, something broken, something dirty, something not worth the air it breathed. "When's the last time you ate?" The question caught her off guard. Her fingers tightened around her knees. "Doesn't matter. It matters to me." That made her look up, just for a second. Just long enough to see his face. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that needed cutting and a jaw shadowed with stubble. His face was weathered in the way of people who worked hard for their living, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than he frowned. But it was his eyes that held her brown and warm, and completely lacking the coldness she'd learned to expect from everyone. She looked away quickly, her heart racing for different reasons now. "I'm Marcus," he said, still crouching there like he had all the time in the world. "I haul cargo between the upper and lower decks." Not exciting, but it pays. Why was he telling her this? What did he want? "I don't have money," she said quickly. "I don't have anything. I can't give you anything." The words came out sharper than she intended, edged with panic. She'd learned that kindness always had a price, and she'd already paid more than anyone should ever have to pay. Marcus was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler. I'm not asking for anything. I just saw you sitting here and thought, maybe you could use a meal. No strings. Just food. No. The word came out too fast. No. People don't just... I know, he interrupted softly. I know people don't just give. I know there's usually a catch. But I promise you, the only thing I want is to know you got something to eat today. She wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. The tiny, shattered piece of her heart that still remembered what hope felt like wanted desperately to believe that someone could be kind without expecting her body, her pain, her degradation in return. But belief was dangerous. Belief got you hurt. Marcus seemed to sense her internal war. Slowly, carefully, he reached into the pack at his side and pulled out a wrapped protein bar. He set it on the ground between them, then stood up. I'll leave this here, he said. You don't have to take it. You don't have to talk to me. But if you're still here tomorrow when I come through with my next delivery, I'll bring more. And if you want to talk, I'm a good listener. He started to walk away, and she found her voice again, small and broken. Why? Marcus turned back. The market lights cast shadows across his face, but his expression was clear, sad, and kind and honest in a way that made her throat tight. Because I've been low before, he said. Not like you, maybe, but low enough to know what it feels like when everyone looks through you instead of at you. And someone helped me once. Didn't ask for anything, just helped because it was the right thing to do. He paused. Maybe it's my turn to pass it on. Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd of merchants and drifters and traders. She stared at the protein bar, sitting on the ground like it might be a trap, like it might explode or vanish or transform into something terrible. Minutes passed. The market around her continued its endless dance of commerce and survival. No one looked at her. No one cared about the small wrapped package sitting in the shadows. Her hands shook as she reached for it. The wrapper crinkled in her fingers. And she'd half expected someone to appear and snatch it away, to laugh at her for thinking she deserved even this small thing. But no one came. She tore it open and took a bite, and the taste protein and grain and something sweet made her eyes sting with tears she couldn't afford to shed. She ate slowly, making it last, and tried not to think about the human named Marcus, or the warmth in his eyes, or the way he'd said tomorrow, like he actually believed she'd still exist by then. When the bar was gone, she tucked the wrapper into her pocket. Not trash-proof. Proof that something had happened, that someone had seen her, even if just for a moment. The station's artificial night cycle began, the lights dimming to simulate evening. The market thinned as shops closed and vendors packed up. She curled tighter into her corner, pulling her inadequate clothes around her body. Tomorrow, he'd said. He'd be back tomorrow. She told herself not to hope. Hope was poison. Hope got you killed. But as she closed her eyes and tried to find sleep on the cold metal floor, she couldn't stop her mind from circling back to brown eyes and a gentle voice, and the completely foreign concept that someone might actually come back, just for her. Marcus kept his promise. Nira had barely slept that night, jerking awake at every sound, her hand instinctively going to the wrapper in her pocket to make sure it was real. When the market lights brightened to simulate morning, she was already awake, watching the corridor with equal parts dread and something she refused to name. He wouldn't come. People never came back. She'd learned that lesson in blood and tears. But 3 hours into the market's daily chaos, she heard those same steady footsteps, and her heart lurched painfully in her chest. Marcus appeared carrying 2 containers, his work uniform dusty from the cargo holds. He spotted her in her corner and his face softened into something like relief. Like he'd been worried she wouldn't be there. "Morning," he said, crouching down again, but keeping his distance. "You eat that bar?" She nodded mutely, her throat too tight for words. "Good." He pulled out another one from his pack, along with a small bottle of water. "Thought you might need this too." The water made her eyes burn. Water was expensive on the station, rationed carefully. And he was just giving it to her. "I can't pay you back," she whispered, "not asking you to." He set both items down. "I'm Marcus, by the way. I said that yesterday, but I don't know if you remember." "I remember." Her voice was barely audible. "I don't. I don't have a name. Not anymore." Something flickered across his face, not pity, but anger on her behalf. It confused her. Why would he be angry for her? "That's okay," he said quietly. "Names aren't everything, but everyone deserves one when they're ready." He sat down on the opposite side of the corridor, keeping several feet between them. "Mind if I take my break here? It's quieter than the upper decks." She didn't know how to answer that, so she said nothing. But she didn't leave either. Marcus pulled out his own meal, a simple sandwich, and ate in comfortable silence. He didn't stare at her, didn't ask questions, just existed in the same space, like it was the most natural thing in the world. After a while, she opened the protein bar with shaking hands and took small bites, hyper-aware of his presence. But he just kept eating, occasionally watching the market traffic pass by. "This station's interesting," he said conversationally. "Been working here about 2 years now. Pays decent. People mostly keep to themselves." "You lived here long?" It took her a moment to realize he was talking to her. Actually talking to her, like she was a person capable of conversation. "I don't know. Time is. It's hard to track." He nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Yeah, happens when you're just trying to survive." Days blurred together. Something in her chest cracked at his understanding. He didn't judge. Didn't tell her she should know better or try harder. Just accepted. They sat like that for 20 minutes before his break ended. When he stood up, he looked down at her with those two kind eyes. "I come through here same time every day," he said. "If you want company, I'll be around. If you don't, that's okay too. But I'll keep bringing food either way." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why do you care?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, his expression distant. "About 5 years ago, I was in a bad place. Lost someone important to me, started drinking too much, stopped caring whether I lived or died. I was sleeping in a cargo hold when a stranger found me and dragged me to a medical center. Stayed with me through the withdrawal, helped me get this job." He met her eyes. "Never asked for anything in return. Just said that when I was back on my feet, I should remember to look down sometimes, see who else might need a hand." He smiled sadly. "So that's what I'm doing. Looking down. And I see you." Then he left, and she was alone again, with tears streaming silently down her face. 3 weeks passed in a strange new rhythm. Marcus came every day, sometimes twice. He brought food, water, eventually a cleaner shirt that he said he didn't need anymore. He talked about his work, about the station, about nothing and everything. He never touched her, never moved too close, never asked for anything doubt, and slowly, impossibly, she began to trust. "I think I want to leave here," she said one day, the words surprising her as much as him. "This corner, I mean." "It's not. I don't feel safe here anymore." Marcus had been chewing a bite of his lunch. He swallowed carefully. "What would feel safer?" "I don't know. Somewhere with walls, maybe. A door I could close." He was quiet, thinking. "Then I have an apartment. It's small, just one room really, but there's a couch. You could stay there if you wanted. Terror and hope warred in her chest. I can't. I don't want to be alone with... I understand, he said quickly. But what if you're not alone? I have a friend, Renzo. Runs a cafe on level 6. Good guy, very safe. What if we both took you there first, let you meet him, see that there are people here who won't hurt you? Then you can decide what you want to do. It was too much. The very idea of being in an enclosed space with men made her skin crawl, made her want to run. But Marcus had never lied to her. In 3 weeks, he'd never broken a single promise. Okay, she whispered. But if I want to leave, you can leave any time. I'll bring you right back here if that's what you want. Level 6 was cleaner than the lower markets, with actual plants growing in hydroponics boxes along the walls. The cafe Marcus led her to was small and warm, with mismatched furniture and the smell of real coffee, a luxury she'd almost forgotten existed. Renz was a big man with dark skin and kind eyes, an apron tied around his waist. When Marcus brought her in, Renzo's face showed surprise, but no disgust, no judgment. This is my friend, Marcus said simply. She's having a hard time. I thought maybe we could sit here for a bit. Renzo nodded slowly. Of course, welcome. He looked at her directly. What can I get you? Coffee? Tea? Something to eat? She couldn't speak, overwhelmed by the normalcy of the question. When had anyone asked what she wanted? Tea, Marcus said gently. Something mild. And maybe some bread? Renzo disappeared behind the counter. Marcus guided her to a table in the corner, far from the handful of other customers. He sat across from her, not beside her, giving her space. When Renzo brought the tea, he set it down carefully and smiled. I'm going to get back to work, but you're welcome here any time. Marcus has good taste in friends. The tea was warm and sweet. She wrapped both hands around the cup, feeling the heat seep into her cold fingers. This is nice, she whispered. Marcus smiled. Yeah? I forgot. I forgot things could be nice. They can be, he said softly. I know it doesn't feel like it, but there's still good in the universe. Still people who care. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. His face was honest, open, with no hidden agenda lurking behind his eyes. He was just a man trying to help, expecting nothing in return. I'm scared, she admitted. Of everything. Of trusting. Of hoping. That's okay. Being scared means you're still fighting. Still alive. They sat in the cafe for over an hour. Renzo brought her bread with real butter, and she ate slowly, savoring every bite. A few other customers came and went, but no one bothered them. No one looked at her with hunger or contempt. When they finally left, Marcus walked beside her through the station corridors. My apartment's just up ahead, but we don't have to go there. I can take you back to the markets if you want. She stopped walking. Her whole body was shaking, but not from cold, from the weight of the decision she was about to make. Show me, she said. Show me where you live. Marcus's apartment was exactly what he'd promised. One small room with a bed, a couch, and a tiny kitchen area. It was clean but cluttered with tools and repair parts. A window showed the stars beyond the station, more beautiful than she remembered. Bathrooms through there, Marcus said, pointing to a door. Shower works pretty well, and there's soap and stuff. The couch folds out into a bed, not fancy, but comfortable enough. She stood in the middle of the room, frozen. Marcus seemed to sense her panic. I'm going to go visit Renzo for a couple hours. Give you space to look around, decide if you want to stay. Door locks from the inside. You're safe here. You're leaving? Just for a bit. I'll come back and knock 3 times, so you know it's me. If you want me to come in, you can open the door. If you don't, I'll go find somewhere else to sleep tonight. He was really leaving, giving her complete control. The realization made her dizzy. Okay, she breathed. He gave her a gentle smile and left. And she was alone in a space that didn't smell like garbage or fear. She approached the bathroom, like it might bite her. Inside was a shower, clean and waiting. There were towels, soft, actual towels hanging on a rack. She stripped off her rags with shaking hands and stepped under the water dot. It was warm, clean. The soap smelled like mint, and she broke down, sliding to the floor of the shower and sobbing as water washed away weeks of grime and years of pain. She cried until there was nothing left, until she was empty and clean and something like new. When she finally emerged, she found Marcus had left clean clothes folded on the couch's soft shirt, and pants that would be too big, but were better than anything she'd worn in forever. She dressed and curled up on the couch, wrapped in a real blanket. 2 hours later, 3 knocks sounded at the door. Her heart hammered, but she stood and walked to it, pressed her palm against the metal. Marcus? It's me. Can I come in? She opened the door. He looked at her, really looked, and his eyes shone with something that might have been pride. You're still here. I'm still here, she echoed. Do you want to stay? She thought about the cold markets, the empty corners, the endless fear. Then she thought about warm tea and clean water and someone who asked what she wanted. Yes, she whispered. I want to stay? Marcus smiled, and it reached all the way to his eyes. Then welcome home. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she believed that home might actually exist.